Hello there and welcome to my latest podcast. To quote Professor Callum Semple, who appeared on yesterday's BBC PM programme, he said, "It takes a lot to get my blood pressure up." I know what he means. He was reacting to the previous interview from Mr Charles Walker MP, who is the Vice Chair of the Tory 1922 Committee, who was reacting to the latest coronavirus initiative from the UK government, and he declared that it was as if we were, quote, trying to abolish death. He was trying to rationalise how the government and country was reacting to the crisis, and initially declared that he could not understand how you could save the NHS if you have basically a bankrupt economy. He went on and clarified that the UK was not bankrupt yet. Mr Walker expressed his concerns about the direction of travel and how it was the middle-aged and well-heeled paid out of the public purse that were making the decisions for us all. A strange comment when he was presumably happy for the Coronavirus Act to pass through the Commons without a vote. He went on that he simply would not accept that the pandemic was rampant. Again, a strange conclusion when the word pandemic represents the spread of a virus across a large region or one that crosses continents, along with the fact that the WHO continues to express very deep concerns. His rationale was that this was a disease that affected the elderly or those with underlying health conditions, and that the measures to be taken affected the life chances of the young and the viability of businesses. He was excoriating about the role of SAGE, the UK government's scientific advisory panel, accusing them of ramping up the rhetoric and with it the fear. He even evoked the WHO as being against the imposition of lockdowns because they disproportionately affect the vulnerable. Mr Walker even questioned whether the elderly wanted to be sheltered, perhaps viewing the limits on their engagement with their family and friends as a price too high for them. He offered what some would consider as a common sense approach by highlighting the news that those in their 80s or 90s probably do and should expect that they will die, the logic being that this is the natural order of life. He concluded that we can't save every life because the cost to the living was too high. Was Mr Walker preparing the country for the worst, as did his Prime Minister in March 2020? At that stage, Johnson offered serious warnings about the nature of the pandemic and with great solemnity stated, "It is going to spread further and I must level with you. I must level with the British public. Many more families are going to lose loved ones before their time." By any measure, the PM interview was quite shocking because it reduced our national reaction down to basic economics and not the well-being of every citizen in this land. For in those moments, it presented the message that some of us have reached a certain age. Thank you for all you've contributed, but now the time has come for you to go because quite simply you are proving to be a burden on our lives and that of our economy. Another aspect Mr Walker appeared to miss was the fact that whilst he spoke of the loss of life chances for the young, it is not the case, a point raised by Professor Semple and very briefly acknowledged by Evan Davis, that many of the hotspots in the current crisis are found on the campuses of the universities and colleges around the UK. Are the young really that invulnerable to the ravages of this disease? But through this radio segment, in the week when the US's Great Barrington Declaration took root on the shores of the UK, noting the high criticism of the declaration and of the so-called fake names within, I could not help but feel that the ghost of herd immunity was lurking in the background of the words he had spoken. The logic of herd immunity is that if enough people catch it, the virus will die out and that we should be able to return to normal. But then herd immunity is really a political concept, used to mask the inactions or incompetence of government. But don't take my word for it. In comments made by the head of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, he made clear that herd immunity is a concept used for vaccination, in which a population can be protected from a certain virus if a threshold of vaccination is reached. Herd immunity is achieved by protecting people from a virus, not by exposing them to it. Never in the history of public health has herd immunity been used as a strategy for responding to an outbreak, let alone a pandemic. As the words of Mr. Walker disappeared down the plug hole of broadcasting, already his die with dignity expectation was consumed by the real news that governments had ignored the science 3 to 4 weeks ago when they recommended action, and that the tiered announcement was probably already ineffective. What a state we have gotten ourselves into. Now, I say this with complete respect to Mr. Walker. I know many people well into their 60s and beyond who already recognise there are more days behind them than before them. But, and here is the distinction, Mr. Walker, they already understand the genetics of cancer, strokes and heart disease, and how those issues may affect their longevity. What they do not accept, however, is that a respiratory disease for which they did not invite into their lives should become the very reason why any notion of their continued contribution to society should give way and bring about an early demise to their own lives. To suggest otherwise is simply to offer the admission that politics, and indeed party politics, is insolvent. Let's not get too hooked on the words of the Honourable Member, because a majority of MPs waved through the Coronavirus Act and the measures to be taken to apparently deal with the crisis. Many of the members of Parliament are actually deaf to the real issues affecting our society, from the inability to be protected in the workplace, to the alleged corrupt tendering process, to consumers having difficulty in getting their monies back, and also to the various industries crying out for help. Since the very outset of this crisis, the UK government is guilty as charged in their neglect of the British people. The only way back is for the UK government to govern for all its peoples, to be honest about the nature and extent of this dreadful virus, and to spend money to save the nation. After all, this government, which likes itself to be seen as a wartime government, should learn the lessons from the past. When the chips are down in a national crisis, the money was and indeed is found for weapons and military action. What is needed here is cash for health, cash for people and cash for industry. Now that would be the mark of a good government, instead of preparing for some of you to die. Until the next time, take care.